There's something quietly powerful about people who grew up in the 1990s. They don't announce it, they don't flex it, but they move through today's world with a strange calm, like they've already seen a version of the future rise and fall once before. People who grew up in the 90s often feel out of sync with modern life, not because they can't use technology, they can, but because they remember a world that existed between two extremes, not fully analog, not fully digital, a rare transition window that no generation before or after will ever experience again. You remember life before constant connection, and you adapted when connection became constant. That alone rewired your brain differently. Psychologists call this adaptive dual coding, the ability to function deeply both offline and online. But let's call it what it really is: mental flexibility under pressure. You learned how to entertain yourself with nothing, and later, how to navigate everything. The first trait that sets 90s kids apart is what researchers describe as earned optimism. Unlike today's algorithm-driven fear cycle or the blind confidence of earlier boom decades, the 90s taught you something more balanced. The world felt stable, but not guaranteed. News still came once a day. Disasters weren't live-streamed into your pocket. Hope wasn't forced, it was assumed. You grew up believing things could work out, but only if you did something about it. That's why modern panic culture feels excessive to you. Your nervous system wasn't trained on constant alerts. Your baseline emotion is calm readiness, not anxiety. The second trait is self-directed independence. You didn't grow up under constant surveillance, no live location, no read receipts, no digital babysitters. You went outside and disappeared for hours. Parents trusted the world and trusted you. That freedom forced you to develop an internal sense of responsibility early. Studies show children with unstructured autonomy develop stronger problem-solving ability and emotional regulation later in life. That's why you don't need step-by-step instructions for everything. You don't freeze when no one's guiding you. You learn to figure things out because there was no alternative. The third trait shaped how you experience desire itself. In the 90s, waiting was built into life. You waited for cartoons. You waited for songs to come on TV. You waited for the internet to connect, literally. Nothing was instant, but nothing felt empty either. Neuroscience shows that delayed rewards strengthen dopamine balance. Your brain learned patience without frustration, anticipation without collapse. That's why modern instant gratification feels strangely unsatisfying to you. You were trained to enjoy the build-up, not just the result. The fourth trait explains why you're unusually grounded. You grew up in a physical-first world: CDs, cassettes, game cartridges, diaries, photos you couldn't delete. Mistakes were permanent. Loss was real. Value was tangible. You learned consequences early, not through lectures, but through experience. And you navigated the world without digital maps or safety nets. You got lost, and then you found your way. That kind of confidence doesn't come from information. It comes from survival without instructions. The fifth trait is rare today. Psychologists call it attention endurance, the ability to stay present without needing constant stimulation. You grew up before life became content. Moments weren't optimized. Nothing needed to be shared. You were fully inside experiences because there was nowhere else to be. That trained your brain for depth, for boredom without panic, for silence without discomfort. That's why you can sit with your thoughts, why you don't need constant noise, why you feel overwhelmed by a world that never shuts up. So when you feel like an outsider today, remember this: you're not behind. You're built differently. You came from a bridge generation, raised with freedom, hardened by transition, adaptable without losing yourself. The traits that look old-fashioned now, patience, independence, presence, are actually becoming rare survival skills. You didn't just grow up in the 90s. You were shaped by a moment in history that will never exist again. And that's
not something to outgrow. That's something to protect.